Beautiful, thank you. Okay, so I reviewed the video, and there are 3 observations that I made. Number 1, I have to lay off the cake. God help me, if I'm putting these things on YouTube, I can't. This sucks. I know you guys are just dying to watch an hour of last class, but hopefully the input will be better for this class. And the third one is that I'm going to speak less this class and give you guys more time to write, because you guys have to write a script. Let's just recapitulate. Let's do a recap so that the people who weren't here yesterday know what the hell they're doing. Does anybody know what the assignment is and can explain it?
One of the texts that we read, so it'll be Glass Menagerie, Gatsby, Lear, and we're gonna analyze it and look for a life lesson and have like a 5-minute TED talk on this life lesson.
Right. So what you guys are doing is you're going through. So I'm speaking now to the 3 people who were away yesterday. You're going through, find one of the texts that really speaks to you on a personal level, that invigorates you, like Jacob is invigorated by the Glass Menagerie. And you're going to try to find a life lesson that you can take and that you can then present to the class in a TED Talk style. Were you here yesterday? No? Here. Okay.
Most creative.
So that's the whole of the assignment. Okay. Are there any questions you guys had while working yesterday or thinking about it last night while you were dreaming about your TED Talks? Did anybody go home and watch that TED Talk, by the way? Okay, so let's find out who the awful, terrible students are. Who has not watched the TED Talk yet? Oh, wow, there we go.
He's watching it right now.
What's that?
He's watching it right now.
We'll be discussing the TED Talk on Friday. Okay, so to give you guys another idea of the week, okay, so today and tomorrow, all work, you are writing your scripts. You're writing your scripts. Okay, you have all today, all tomorrow. You're writing a 5-minute script. Yep.
Would we really have to have like a thesis type thing in our...
Your thesis is very straightforward. Your thesis is just what the life lesson is.
Okay.
So your thesis is the life lesson of King Lear is, be true to yourself or something like that. Try not to be so cliched. But
We're just getting our idea out there. We're not trying to persuade people.
Well, yes, because you're giving the life lesson, but then you have to kind of convince us that it actually does come from the book.
Okay.
If you say that the life lesson of Great Gatsby, is something crazy like, faith in God, fair enough, but I don't see that anywhere in Gatsby. You'd have to convince me of it by referencing Gatsby. So this isn't just a generic life lesson; it's one you can learn from the book. Okay, so that's kind of how this is structured. It's kind of like an oral essay, and that's what it's like. For the people here who I helped write essays, you remember. The way you write an essay is just think of an idea that you have, and you explain why you have that idea. It's very straightforward. Writing essays is not conceptually difficult. It's not hard to get your mind around it, right? It's technically difficult because writing is more difficult than speaking. It's very straightforward, right? So that's the assignment. Were there any other questions you guys had about what you're asked to do? It's only a 5-minute presentation, right? 5 minutes, so don't go overboard. I think on there it says it's 750 words. That's 3 pages, double spaced, MLA format. And that should be pretty good. Beautiful. Okay. Get to work. Yes. Sure. Okay, so here's what I want you guys to think about. I'll give you guys 30 seconds to think about it, and we're going to start to throw around some ideas, okay? Here's the quote. It comes from a book called How Literature Saved My Life. It's by an author named David Shields. And here's the quote. Ready? I want work that, possessing as thin a membrane as possible between life and art, foregrounds the question of how the writer solves being alive. Samuel Johnson wrote that a book should either allow us to escape existence or teach us how to endure it. Acutely aware of our mortal condition, I find books that simply allow us to escape existence a staggering waste of time. Who is brave enough to put that in their own words so we know what the hell we're talking about? Okay, let's see if Keenan can do it.
Okay, so what he's trying to say is that whenever you're examining literature, whenever you're reading books,
Yep.
They should be used by the author as a tool to help you grow as a person and know how to tackle life's problems, instead of allowing you to go into an ulterior world where you don't have to face these problems, where you can just escape for a little bit. He's saying that having this escape is pretty much useless.
It is a staggering waste of time.
Yeah.
Not that it is a staggering waste of time. Is that what you meant to say?
Yeah. So it's like saying that it's really useless.
Yep.
And that literature should be used to teach us lessons and help us to grow in life, and that these lessons.
Life. Okay? If there's one thing that we all know about life, if we know our Buddhist philosophy, it's that life is what? It starts with an S. Suffering. Life is suffering. Okay? We learned that in Christianity as well. What makes Jesus such a great role model for us is to know that he took the suffering of the world and bared it willingly. Okay? So, that will get into your religion class, but let's bring it back to literature here. What David Shields is saying is that it is a staggering waste of time just to read literature to escape life, because you can't escape life unless you commit suicide. And if anybody here has read Albert Camus, who's a French philosopher, that doesn't really cut it. You can't escape your mortal condition. You can't escape the suffering of life. However, you can learn to endure it. You can learn to bear that suffering. And he says that's what literature should do, right? So when you guys are thinking about your life lessons, you can think of it in that way. If you're struggling to come up with a real lesson, right? Think about the text that I'm doing. I'm reading The Great Gatsby. Does anything in The Great Gatsby help me endure the suffering of life?
Seeing what Gatsby's going through, it just kind of makes it be like, oh, maybe my life's not so bad.
Maybe by comparison. Although I've never been convinced of that. Who here has had a parent who, when you say, oh, I'm not so hungry, I want to throw this out, and they say there are starving children in China, has that ever made anybody more hungry in the history of parents and children?
Makes you feel
Has it
bad.
made you more hungry? Has the thought of starving children just really whet that appetite and just makes you want to
It
eat
sounds
the rest of the dinner?
cannibalistic.
It sounds pretty
No,
awful.
It makes me feel bad.
It makes you feel bad. It makes you lose my appetite, if anything.
Yeah.
So, I'm not convinced that by saying other people are suffering, it makes my suffering any less. It might put it in perspective. It might say, listen, this person is suffering, but somehow they're getting through it. Maybe I can get through the suffering that I have, for as relevant as it is to me, right? So if you're struggling to come up with something that is a life lesson, that's legitimate, that is not BS, then maybe think of it that way. Think of suffering in your own life, your own personal life. Look to a character who's able to endure it, or who's not able to endure it, and see what mistakes they made. And maybe that can be a life lesson for you guys. Any more thoughts? You guys want to bat around with that quotation? Okay. You guys continue working.